Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris, otherwise known as CHIPxHAZARD. This video was highly requested, and it's how I color grade my DJI 4D footage, the ProRes. So we're going to dive into that. I have a few disclaimers to run through first, so you kind of know where we're starting in all of this. So with that being said, grab an energy drink, get ready to dive in with me. And yeah, here we go. First things first is I record in ProRes 422 LT. In all honesty, you probably don't need that kind of file size. I just enjoy how flexible the file is and what I can do with it in post. Secondly, I did use a mist filter. It is the Moment Cinebloom 10%. And the lens I used is a Tamron 20-40. All of these shots were with that combo. So if you see a little bit of blooming in the highlights, that is due to the Cinebloom. And lastly, the last little detail you need to know is that I edit in Final Cut Pro. Does that make me less than? I don't think so, because in my opinion, I get the look that I want, and I've been asked multiple times, so apparently something's happening that people like. So let's dive right on in. One last thing I forgot is that for some reason, I don't know why this is, but the Ronin 4D does end up very cold. So even at like 6,000 Kelvin, it will still look like 54,000 Kelvin. And I don't know why that is, but just so you know, if something looks a little bit cooler than it should be, that's probably why. So, anyways, we got a couple of these clips here. Um, these are all from the last wedding that I shot because I do use this for weddings. Um, so, obviously, first off, I throw an adjustment layer over it because they are all shot with the same camera. And these are kind of like the final touches. I always like to do that first and then go back and tweak. Um, why? I don't really know. That's just what works for me. We're gonna go ahead and throw on Dehancer, and Dehancer has kind of been the go-to for me. If you've never used Dehancer, it is a great, essentially like a CST. Um, it just does a really good job into helping finalize the look that you're going for. I go in here, I go choose camera. Obviously, this is DJI. For some reason, Dehancer does not have the Zenmuse X9 in it, so I use the X7. So the color might be a little bit off, but it is still D-Log, and it is still trying to read out that kind of color space because they are different. D-Log and D-Log M are not the same thing, so make sure obviously you can play around with the different profiles, but picking the most accurate one helps Dehancer color your footage the best. Right now, I'm on a Vision 3 50D kick, so just FYI, that is the one that I will lean towards. And then I like to come in here and click film compression. Sometimes I dabble with these and lower them to like 50% impact and then move the white point to 80. But for this shot, because it is very strongly backlit, I like to just leave those settings as is. I know a lot of people like to change the print to like Kodak. I turn this off. I just haven't gotten this section of it to where I like the look of it, so I just turn it off completely. My film grain, I like to go with 65 at 50 ISO. So it's very minimal, but it is there, and there's a little bit of texture, and I like the way it looks. Halation, I go to 65 millimeter and check that with no remjet. The remjet one just goes a little too strong for me. I like subtlety. I want the effect, but I want it subtle. So there's that. We don't need bloom. Uh, I don't touch film damage. This is still a wedding film that I'm delivering. So uh, we skip film breath, gate weave, overscan. I just skip all those. I do like to add a vignette. I just like the way it looks. A lot of my shots are centered. So it just helps draw your attention in even more. And that's it for the de-hancer side of things. That's all I do with that. Everything else is shot specific. So I'll go back here. We'll start with this clip here. There's these beautiful, like, kind of cherry blossom like bushes and whatnot. I go to wheels. Obviously, I add in my saturation. I usually go pretty high just so I can see how everything's hitting, and then I will go in and adjust that part later. Um, but yeah, I usually boost up my midtones a little bit, and then I will skip to color curves, and I will drop pins just like this. This is kind of where I can like decide if I want to push my highlights up a little bit. This is kind of where I bring in my shadows, blacks, all of that stuff. But keep in mind, I always watch my scopes off to the left, or my parade, as some people like to get specific with. It's really not that serious. Use what works for you. This helps me the best. And so I just kind of dial this in as best I can or to my liking. That didn't look too bad. I have not adjusted colors yet. So keep that in mind. This is just the general like exposure that I'm kind of dialing in. In here, I'll just turn off my like saturation in the shadows. I like my blacks to be black. So we do that. Um, so far, these blues up here are really, really too punchy. Remember that for some reason, the 4D likes to just really be on the cold side. And I still just don't know why that is. So I do come in here and warm this up a decent amount. I'll usually go to about 6,000. I use the slider at first to just kind of see how strongly the image is taking it. And usually when you warm it up, it adds in greens. So then I come in with the tint and just to taste. You can really kind of dial this in however you like. I think right there is not terrible. It's starting to lean a little cooler than I think. So we'll go there. We'll drop the mid-tone saturation. I would probably bring the overall exposure down just a smidge. Drop back into here. Raise that midpoint again. And I think that looks pretty darn good. Yeah, that's basically it. So that way you can kind of see what each layer is doing. And so that way, I don't know, you can kind of gauge that as best you can. These greens in this shot, in my personal opinion, are just way too hot. So I would just grab that and just pull it down. And that's better. Then I'd probably go with the luminance of it and drag it down even more. And that's pretty much how I'd go about that. So yeah, that's pretty much the whole thing. We'll go through here and touch up a couple more clips. As you can see right here, especially in this shot, because it is backlit, you can see how much blue is in here, and the ISO or the Kelvin of this shot was, and I know it was, shot at 6,000 Kelvin. So yeah, just keep that in mind. With this camera, it goes really blue. And so usually I feel like I have to warm up every single clip. And to me, that it does get a little old, quite a bit, if I'm going to be honest with you. So each camera has its own cons. So take that how you will. If you're like, oh, well, my camera doesn't, okay, that's fantastic. Each camera has a con. I love the image that comes out of this. So if I do want like such a great looking image, I'm just going to have to, suck it up and just warm up the shots. Like this is sunset. This should be like a goldeny hour look. So we're probably going to go 6500 on this and then slide back in with the tint. I would probably go 6 on that. And those highlights are pretty poppin'. So we'll drag this up. That bloom kind of intensifies a lot of these shots. And so it shouldn't be as bright as it looks. But yeah, then you just go in and tweak it to taste and like bring your blacks back down. I like seeing a lot of that detail. Like, is there softness here? Yes, but I just think it gives it like a dreamier look. And I don't know, that's just what I do. So like with this shot, yeah, the moment I add the saturation in, the skin tones still look fantastic. I will say that. I don't ever really have to ever touch skin tones, which thank goodness, because messing with skin tones is just a nightmare. Having to match different cameras to get good skin tones, it's just not fun, in all honesty. If you know, you know. All my colorists know. I'm not saying that I'm the best colorist in the world. I know that. But I have my way of doing things to get the look that I want. And you know what? We won't darken this too much yet, because I feel like there's still information in those highlights that I could. Yeah, if I drag that down, I think that looks better like that. See, it's all to taste. There's not like a specific like thing or routine you have to go through. I have my routine of my wheels, curve, and hue saturation curves. And then dehancer on the top end, because the layers above it just kind of finishes off the look for me. And I like that. So, because there is still so much blue in this shot. I think if I remember correctly, this one was at like 7,500. Again, this was shot at 5,600. We're inside. This should look absurdly warm, and it just doesn't. I think that looks much better. It kind of helps match some of the other shots. And if I wanted to, I would probably go in and just, zone and like mask some of these colors and tone them down. Just because like the yellows right now are just like really hot. So, but for the sake of the video, I'm not going to do that. So here's a few more clips that I'll go speed run through, and then we'll wrap up and talk. All right, and that's hopefully this video was helpful to you in the process that I use on how to edit that kind of footage, because it can be pretty tricky. My first go around with it, I was like really confused why everything was so cold looking, but quickly found out how to adjust that. I'm pretty sure there's way more effects and stuff like that that you could do in like DaVinci and whatnot, but this is how I do it right now and how I edit my product. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. I had to take a break for editing different stuff for a while, so I'm back, and I hope you have an amazing day. Peace.